The first gun pointed at Elise Warren's face before she even had time to breathe. Then came the second. Then the third. Within 2 seconds, the private ballroom on the 42nd floor of the Devereux Hotel turned into a wall of black suits, polished weapons, and deadly silence. Elise stood frozen beneath a chandelier made of smoked crystal, one hand gripping a torn black suit jacket, the other trembling around a pair of silver sewing scissors she had forgotten to put down. Rain slid down the tall windows behind the men, turning the New Orleans skyline into a blurred painting of gold lights and storm-black glass. At the center of the long mahogany table sat Matteo Verelli. She knew his name only because every employee in the hotel had been warned not to say it aloud. Do not look directly at Mr. Verelli. Do not enter any hallway his security has cleared. Do not touch anything belonging to his party. Do not ask questions. Elise had broken every rule in under 30 seconds. The men around the table did not rise quickly. They did not shout. That somehow made it worse. They turned toward her with the slow, quiet precision of people who had ended lives without raising their voices. Matteo did not move at all. He sat at the head of the table in a white dress shirt, black vest, and no jacket. His sleeves were rolled just enough to reveal tattoos crawling over his forearms like dark vows written in ink. A silver watch rested against one wrist. His black hair was pushed back from a face too controlled to be handsome in any gentle way. He looked like a man carved out of restraint, violence, and old grief. His eyes settled on Elise, not on the scissors, not on the guns, on her. Elise swallowed hard. Her heart hammered so violently she could feel it in her throat. "I found something," she said. No one answered. Her voice almost broke, but she forced it steady. She lifted the jacket higher, under the collar, sewn inside the lining. A man to Matteo's right took one step forward. "Put the scissors down." Elise did not. Not because she was brave, because her fingers had locked. "I work in alterations," she said quickly. "Basement level." They brought this suit down torn at the shoulder seam. I was told it belonged to one of the VIP guests. I opened the lining to reinforce the stitch, and there was a device inside. A microphone. It was active. The room changed. Not loudly. Not visibly. But Elise felt the shift the way a person feels. The air disappear before a storm hits. One older man at the table slowly pushed his chair back. Another whispered something in Italian. A third stared at the jacket like it had become a bomb. Matteo's gaze never left Elise. "Come here," he said. His voice was calm, deep, soft enough that it should not have carried, but every man heard it. Elise shook her head once before she could stop herself. A flicker passed through Matteo's eyes. Not anger. "Interest," I said. He repeated, "Come here." The guns stayed raised. Elise walked forward on legs that felt borrowed. The ballroom floor shone beneath her cheap black work shoes. She was painfully aware of how she looked among them plus-size body in a faded hotel uniform, hair pinned messily at the back of her neck, cheeks flushed from running up 20 flights when the service elevator stopped responding. She smelled faintly of steam, thread, and basement dust. Matteo smelled like cedar, rain, and expensive danger. When she reached him, he rose. Every conversation in the room died. He was taller than she expected, broader, close enough now that she could see a thin scar cutting through his right eyebrow and another vanishing beneath the open collar of his shirt. He extended his hand. Elise hesitated, his eyes lowered to the jacket. My eye. The politeness terrified her more than the guns. She handed him the suit. Matteo turned the collar inside out with careful fingers. Elise had cut the stitches cleanly, exposing the tiny black microphone nestled beneath a strip of silk lining. A nearly invisible wire ran down the seam. For the first time, something broke through his calm. His jaw tightened. The man beside him cursed under his breath. Matteo looked at the device, then at the table full of men who had come there to discuss peace between families that had been killing each other for 8 years. Then he looked back at Elise. "What is your name?" "Elise," she whispered. "Elise Warren." His gaze moved over her face slowly, not in a way that felt hungry or dismissive, but as though he were memorizing evidence. Every freckle, every fear, every breath she tried to hide. Then Matteo did something no one in the room expected. He took the suit jacket off the back of his chair, placed it gently in Elise's hands, and turned toward the armed men. "Lower your weapons." No one moved. His voice dropped. Now, one by one, the guns lowered. Matteo stepped beside Elise, close enough that his shoulder almost touched hers, and faced the room. "This woman," he said, "just saved my empire." The silence that followed was not relief. It was the sound of every man in that room realizing the war had already begun. 4 hours earlier, Elise Warren had been sitting in the basement alteration room with a needle between her teeth, trying not to cry over a torn satin bridesmaid dress. The dress belonged to a woman staying in the presidential suite who had sent it down with a note that read, "Fix the side seam. Don't stretch it. Don't ruin it like the girl wearing it ruined the photos." Elise had read the note twice, then folded it carefully and placed it beneath the work lamp. She had spent years repairing insults other people wore. The Devereaux Hotel was one of those grand New Orleans landmarks that looked like a palace from the street and a machine from below. Guests saw marble floors, velvet chairs, brass elevators, white orchids, jazz drifting through the lobby, and doormen who remembered names before being told. Elise saw laundry carts, steam burns, broken zippers, bloodless emergencies, and rich people panicking over fabric while pretending they never panicked. She had worked there for 6 years. Most guests never knew she existed. That suited her. In the basement, she could breathe. There were no mirrors except the cracked one by the old sink. No eyes lingering too long on her body. No women looking her up and down and deciding she did not belong near silk. No men smiling in ways that made her feel like a dare. Just thread, steam, scissors, needles. Things that obeyed pressure when applied carefully. Elise liked broken seams because they told the truth. Fabric tore where it had been forced to carry too much. People were the same, though they hid it better. At 9:13 that evening, the service door opened so hard, it slammed against the wall. A young hotel manager named Pierce rushed in holding a black garment bag, like it contained a human organ. "Elise, emergency." She did not look up. Everything in this hotel is an emergency after 9. VIP emergency. That means someone important sat down too fast. Pierce didn't smile. His face was pale. "This belongs upstairs. Private event. 42nd floor." Elise finally turned. Pierce laid the garment bag across the table with unusual care. Shoulder seam split. "They need it back in 20 minutes. Then tell them not to move their shoulders for 25. Elise." Something in his tone made her stop. Pierce leaned closer. "Just fix it. Don't check pockets. Don't ask whose it is. Don't talk about it after." Elise stared at him. "That sounds healthy. Please." He left before she could ask more. The suit inside was black, handmade, impossibly expensive. Elise could tell from the weight alone. Real wool. Italian. Custom cut. The kind of suit built not to flatter a man but to warn people about him. The tear was near the right shoulder, small but awkward. Whoever had ripped it had either grabbed the wearer hard or missed stabbing him by half an inch. Elise paused at that thought. Then she shook it away. Not her world. She turned the suit inside out and examined the lining. Deep, black, silk. Hand-finished seams. Beautiful work. Almost too beautiful. But there was something wrong beneath the collar. A tiny unevenness where the fabric should have laid smooth. Elise frowned. A lesser seamstress would have missed it. Her mother would not have. That thought came suddenly, as it always did when Elise touched expensive fabric. Her mother had owned a tiny tailor shop before illness took her hands, then her strength, then the shop, then everything else. Elise had learned to sew sitting on a stool beside her, feet swinging above the floor, watching her mother make poor people look dignified and rich people look human. A seam always remembers the hand that touched it, her mother used to say. Elise ran her thumb under the collar, something hard pressed back. She picked up her smallest scissors and opened the stitch. The microphone slipped into her palm like a black insect. For 5 full seconds, she did nothing. Then the tiny device blinked. Active. Elise's breath stopped. She looked at the ceiling as if she could see through 42 floors of concrete, marble, and lies. A peace meeting. That was what the whispers had said all week. Not in official words, of course. The staff only heard fragments. Entire floors closed. Security teams from 3 cities. Men with calm faces and dead eyes. A private dinner where no phones were allowed. A guest list so confidential that even the hotel director looked scared. And this suit had a microphone sewn inside. Elise should have called security. She knew that. But hotel security reported to hotel management. Hotel management reported to investors. Investors entertained criminals in suites that cost more per night than Elise made in a month. So she did the only thing that made sense and no sense at all. She grabbed the jacket and ran. The service elevator froze at floor 26. Elise stared at the numbers, panting. No, 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 no. The doors opened to an empty corridor. She took the stairs. By floor 35, her lungs burned. By floor 39, one of her knees screamed. By floor 42, she was sweating through her grey uniform and holding the jacket against her chest like a shield. 2 guards blocked the private ballroom entrance. "Staff isn't allowed here," one said. "There's a microphone in his suit." Neither moved. Elise lifted the collar, showing the cut lining. The guard on the left looked down. That, one glance, was enough. His hand went to his ear. The ballroom door opened from inside. Elise heard men speaking. Then she heard a name. Virelli. The guard reached for her arm, but Elise pulled away, panic overtaking caution. She pushed through the door and walked straight into the deadliest room in New Orleans. Now, 4 hours later, she sat alone in Matteo Virelli's penthouse suite while the city storm beat against the windows. No one had explained anything. After Matteo declared that she had saved his empire, the room had exploded into controlled chaos. Phones were collected. Men were searched. The device was placed inside a lead-lined evidence case. 3 members of the hotel staff disappeared into questioning. The peace meeting ended before it began. Elise had expected to be thanked, dismissed, maybe fired. Instead, Matteo's head of security, a stone-faced man named Dante Russo, had escorted her to the penthouse and locked the door behind him. "For her protection," he said. Elise had watched the lock turn and thought protection looked a lot like captivity when powerful men named it. The suite was larger than her entire apartment building. A piano stood near the windows. The walls were dark wood and creamstone. Fresh white roses sat in a black vase on the dining table. Someone had lit no candles, yet the room glowed with low golden light from hidden fixtures. Luxury had a way of making silence feel expensive. Elise sat on the edge of a velvet chair and refused to touch anything. Her scissors had been taken, her phone too. The suit jacket lay on the coffee table, exposed collar facing upward, like a body waiting for examination. At midnight, the door opened. Matteo entered alone, He had changed into another black shirt, open at the throat, sleeves down now. The tattoos vanished beneath the cuffs, but Elise knew they were there. That made them feel more dangerous. He closed the door behind him. No guard followed. Elise stood. "I want to leave." "No." The answer came too quickly. Her fear sharpened into anger. "You can't keep me here." "I can." "At least, you're honest." His eyes moved over her face. "I'm not known for lying." "No. Just kidnapping hotel employees." "You're not kidnapped." The door locks from the outside, because 3 men downstairs may have helped plant a surveillance device in my suit, and now everyone knows you found it. Elise felt some of the heat drain from her face. Matteo took a slow step closer. "If I let you walk out of this hotel tonight, you won't make it 2 blocks. She hated that his voice was calm enough to sound reasonable. "I can go to the police." "You can." Another step. "And by morning, your statement will be leaked, your apartment will be searched, your name will be on every private channel from here to Miami, and the person who planted that microphone will know exactly where to find you." Elise wrapped her arms around herself. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you frightened enough to stop making brave decisions without understanding the cost." "I wasn't being brave." "No?" "No." She looked at the jacket. "I was being stupid." For the first time, the corner of his mouth almost moved. Almost. Stupid people don't notice hand-stitched surveillance sewn under a silk collar. I notice seams. That's my job. Your job saved my life. "Your empire," she corrected quietly. "That's what you said." Something unreadable crossed his face. He looked away first. It should have felt like a victory. It didn't. Matteo walked to the bar and poured a glass of water, not alcohol. He brought it to her but stopped a foot away, offering it without touching her. Elise stared at the glass. "You think I poisoned it?" he asked. "I think I met you while holding scissors and being aimed at by 6 guns. I'm adjusting." This time he did smile. Barely, coldly. But it was there. She took the water. Their fingers did not touch. Still, she felt the almost contact like heat. Matteo noticed. Of course he did. He noticed everything. "Elise Warren," he said, tasting her name like a clue. 31. Lives in Bywater. Works nights and weekends. No criminal record. Mother deceased. Father absent. 1 sister deceased. Her spine stiffened. "You ran a background check." "I had 10 minutes." "You had 10 minutes and used my dead family as research." His gaze sharpened. "I used your dead family to determine whether you were bait." The word cut. Bait. Elise set the glass down. "And am I?" He did not answer right away. The storm pressed against the windows. Finally, Matteo said, "I don't know yet." The honesty hurt more than accusation. Elise laughed once, softly, without humor. "Then why am I still alive?" His eyes darkened. "Because when every gun turned toward you," he said, "you looked at the microphone, not at me, not at the exits, not at the weapons. You looked at the evidence. People who set traps usually watch to see who bleeds." Elise had no response. Matteo moved to the window, hands sliding into his pockets. He looked out over New Orleans like he owned the storm and distrusted it. "Who gave you the suit?" "Pierce. Night manager." "Did he know what was inside?" "I don't think so." He looked scared, but everyone looks scared upstairs. "Who else touched it?" "I don't know." He turned back. "Think." "I am thinking." "Think harder." Elise stepped toward him before fear could stop her. "Don't talk to me like I'm one of your men." Silence. A dangerous silence. Then Matteo turned fully. The room seemed to shrink around him. "I don't have men like you," he said. Elise's pulse jumped. She hated herself for hearing something beneath that sentence. Something intimate, something impossible. She looked away. Matteo's voice softened by 1 degree. You re-angry. I'm trapped. You're re-alive. I had a life before tonight. Not anymore. The words landed like a door slamming shut. Elise stared at him. That's not your decision. No, Matteo said. It was decided the moment you opened my suit. By dawn, Elise understood what he meant. Her apartment had been broken into at 3:42 a.m. Matteo showed her the security footage on a tablet without dramatic explanation. 2 men in maintenance uniforms entered her building. They wore caps low over their faces. One carried a canvas tool bag. They were inside her apartment for 9 minutes. When they left, the bag was heavier. Elise watched the footage twice. Her face went numb. My neighbor, she whispered. Mrs. Alvarez across the hall. Did they hurt anyone? No. How do you know? I sent someone to check. She looked up sharply. You sent someone to my apartment. I sent someone to keep your neighbors breathing. She hated that she could not argue with that. Then she remembered. Noah. Matteo's expression changed so subtly most people would have missed it. Elise did not. Who is Noah? My nephew. Her voice cracked. He's 7. He lives with me sometimes. My sister's son. He was supposed to be with his father this week, but if he got scared or called me and I didn't answer, she reached for her missing phone, panic rising. Matteo was already dialing. To whom? He asked. Elise, she snapped, shaking. Give me my phone. He held his out instead. Number. She recited it. The call rang 4 times. 5. 6. Then a sleepy little voice answered. Auntie. Elise nearly collapsed. Noah. She turned away from Matteo, pressing the phone to her ear. Baby, where are you? Her dad says. Are you okay? You sound weird. I'm okay. She closed her eyes. I just missed you. Are you at work? Yes. Did the rich lady yell about the purple dress? A broken laugh escaped her. Something like that. Matteo stood very still behind her. Elise could feel him listening, without looking like he was listening. She ended the call after promising pancakes on Sunday. When she turned back, Matteo's face had returned to stone. You have a child in your life, he said. A nephew. Does anyone at the hotel know? No. Good. The word was too hard. Elise stepped closer. Noah has nothing to do with this. He does now. Something inside her snapped. No. You don't get to say that. You don't get to walk into my life with your guns and your enemies and decide a little boy is part of your war. Matteo closed the distance between them. Not fast, not threateningly, but completely. Elise, he said, and her name in his voice made the room tilt. My enemies broke into your apartment before sunrise. That means they already know where you sleep. If they learn what you love, they'll use it. Her breath caught. His eyes dropped for 1 second to her mouth, then lifted again, as if he had punished himself for looking. I will not let that happen. You don't know him. No. Matteo's voice lowered. But I know what it is to bury someone because men like me failed to end a war in time. That was the first crack. Small, sharp, gone, almost instantly. But Elise saw it. Matteo Varelli had lost someone. Not in the distant political way rich criminals lost people. Not as a headline. Not as revenge currency. Personally. The knowledge frightened her because it made him human. And a human monster was far more dangerous than a myth. By noon, Elise was moved out of the hotel through the laundry exit beneath 2 white sheets on a service cart. She called it ridiculous. Dante called it effective. Matteo said nothing. 3 black SUVs waited in the rain-slick alley behind the hotel. Steam rose from the pavement. Jazz from Bourbon Street floated faintly through the storm, cheerful and cruel. Elise climbed into the middle SUV and found Matteo already inside. She stopped. Absolutely not. Dante blocked the rain with an umbrella. Miss Warren, I am not sitting alone in a car with him. Matteo looked up from his phone. You sat alone in my suite for 6 hours. That had doors. Locked doors. Exactly. Dante looked between them and made the wise decision not to smile. Matteo set the phone down. Get in. You always talk like that. Yes. Does it work? Usually. Elise held his gaze. Then she climbed in, mostly because the rain was soaking through her uniform, and partly because every instinct she owned told her that standing exposed in an alley was stupid. The SUV pulled away. For several minutes, neither spoke. New Orleans passed outside the tinted glass in wet fragments. Iron balconies, gas lamps, shuttered windows, tourists huddled under awnings, old streets carrying new sins. Elise folded her hands tightly in her lap. Matteo noticed. You afraid of cars. I'm afraid of being driven somewhere I didn't choose. His eyes shifted to the window. You being taken to a safe house. Of course. The classic romantic destination. His gaze returned to her. Elise regretted the word romantic the second it left her mouth. Matteo said nothing. That was worse. The safe house stood behind iron gates in the Garden District, an old mansion wrapped in oak trees and Spanish moss. White columns framed the entrance. Security cameras hid beneath the eaves. Armed men moved through the rain like shadows pretending to be staff. Inside, the house smelled of lemon polish, old wood, and money that had survived several generations of sin. A woman named Celia gave Elise dry clothes. The clothes fit. That startled her. Not perfectly, but close enough. Soft black pants, a cream sweater, no hotel logo, no humiliating stretch across her chest or hips. Someone had guessed her size with quiet precision and without making her feel like a problem to solve. She suspected Matteo. That annoyed her more than it should have. At dinner, she was seated at a long table across from him. Not beside. Not far away. Across, like an equal being studied. He ate little. She ate because fear had burned through her body and left hunger behind. Dante entered with a folder. The device routed through hotel security, then bounced offshore. Whoever planted it wanted the meeting recorded and leaked selectively. Matteo leaned back. Names. Pierce was clean. Terrified, but clean. Taylor route was manipulated after the jacket left your room. We found camera gaps on service level B. Elise looked up. That corridor has dead zones. Both men turned to her. She set down her fork. Service level B. Behind the linen room. The cameras have been broken for months. Management kept saying repairs were scheduled. Dante made a note. Matteo watched her. Who uses that corridor? Laundry. Banquet staff. Maintenance. Anyone who knows the basement. Rafael Serrano owns the security contract, Dante said. The name changed the air. Elise knew Rafael Serrano. Everyone in the hotel did. Not personally, of course. He floated through the lobby in pale suits, smiling at donors, kissing older women on both cheeks, calling employees by names he read from badges. He owned part of the Devereux and several other luxury properties. The newspapers called him a philanthropist. Matteo called him something else under his breath in Italian. Elise did not need translation. Raphael hosted the peace meeting, she asked. He offered neutral ground, Matteo said. You trusted him? His eyes hardened. No. Then why go? Because refusing peace makes widows faster than accepting dangerous invitations. Again, that crack. Again, gone. Dante's phone buzzed. He read the message and looked at Matteo. There's more. Footage leaked. Matteo held out his hand. Dante gave him the phone. Elise watched Matteo's expression turn colder than she thought a human face could become. He passed her the phone. A gossip site headline glowed across the screen. Mystery plus-size hotel worker seen entering Mafia Boss' penthouse after failed peace summit. Below it was a grainy image of Elise in the hallway outside Matteo's suite, uniform wrinkled, face pale, jacket in hand. Another headline loaded, Virelli's secret woman. Elise's stomach dropped. "No," she whispered. Matteo stood. The room reacted before he spoke. Dante straightened. 2 guards near the door shifted. Matteo's voice was deadly calm. "Who released it?" Dante checked the phone. "Anonymous account. But Serrano's media group amplified it first." Elise pushed back from the table. "I need to call my manager. My job. Your job is gone." She stared at Matteo. He did not soften the words. "By morning, the hotel will claim you violated guest privacy. They'll fire you publicly to protect themselves. You don't know that. I know men like Serrano." Elise's hands shook, this time from rage. "You don't get to stand there and announce the destruction of my life like you rereading weather." Matteo's eyes flashed. "I'm not announcing it," he said. "I'm preparing you. I didn't ask you to prepare me. No. You ran into my meeting with a microphone in your hand, to save you. And now I'm saving you back." The words struck too close, too intimate, too possessive. Elise looked away first. Dante cleared his throat carefully. There may be a way to slow the narrative. Matteo did not take his eyes off Elise. "Say it. If they frame her as a disposable employee, she's vulnerable. If she appears connected to you by choice, Serrano has to be careful. Public harm becomes costly." Elise looked between them. "Connected how?" Dante said nothing. Matteo's face darkened. "No." Elise folded her arms. "I hate when people answer questions I haven't gotten explained yet." Dante looked almost apologetic. "A fake relationship." The room went silent. Elise laughed. "No." Matteo's answer came at the same time. "No." For one strange second, they were united. Then Dante continued. "Not a romance story. A protection strategy. If Matteo publicly claims you as someone under his personal protection, Serrano can terrace you quietly. If he suggests more." "No," Matteo repeated. But Elise heard something in his refusal that did not sound like disgust. It sounded like fear. That was worse. She lifted her chin. "What exactly does suggests more mean?" Dante hesitated. Matteo turned to the window. Elise stared at his back. "Mr. Virelli." He looked over his shoulder. The title had landed like a slap. "Good. Elise," he said quietly, warning in her name. She stepped closer. "If my life is being burned down because of your jacket, I deserve to know how you plan to put out the fire." His gaze held hers for a long moment. Then he said, "Tomorrow night there is a charity gala at Serrano's museum wing. He expects me to hide. Instead, I'll arrive with you." "As what?" His jaw tightened. "My fiancée." Elise forgot how to breathe. Somewhere in the house, rain tapped against old glass. "No," she said. "It would be a lie. That's not my biggest issue. It places you under the oldest rule in my world. A man may threaten another man's. Money, territory, alliances. But touching his promised wife starts a blood debt. I'm not your promised anything. No." His eyes moved over her face, slowly, darkly. "But they don't need to know that." Elise should have refused again. She should have demanded a lawyer, a police escort, a train ticket to somewhere dry and far away. Instead, she imagined Noah's small voice on the phone. "Auntie, are you okay?" She imagined her apartment door broken open. Her name in headlines. Serrano smiling in the hotel lobby as if people were fabric he could cut and discard. Then she looked at Matteo Varelli, the most dangerous man she had ever met, standing in a room full of armed men and refusing to pretend he was not dangerous. "At the first sign that you're reusing me," she said, "I walk." His gaze sharpened. "If you walk, you do it beside me, not alone. That sounds like ownership." "No." Matteo stepped closer, stopping just before the space between them became unbearable. "Ownership is taking. Protection is standing between. And obsession." The word escaped before she could stop it. His face stilled. For a moment, the room felt breathless. Then Matteo said, very softly, "Obsession is what happens when protection stops being enough." The gala at Serrano's museum wing looked like heaven built for criminals. White marble floors, gold-framed paintings, champagne towers, a string quartet playing beneath a ceiling painted with angels. Women glittered in diamonds. Men smiled with knives hidden behind their teeth. Elise arrived on Matteo's arm, wearing a deep emerald dress Celia had produced with no explanation. It wrapped softly around her body instead of fighting it. Her hair was pinned low, a few curls loose at her cheeks. She wore no diamonds. Matteo had offered. She refused. He had looked at her bare throat for 1 second too long. Then he had said, "Good." "Good?" she asked. Diamonds would make them look at the diamonds. She hated how warm her face became. Now every person in the museum looked at her anyway. Not kindly, not subtly. Whispers moved through the room as Matteo guided her forward, with his hand hovering at her lower back, but not touching. The almost touch did something wicked to her nerves. It made her aware of him in pieces, the heat of his body, the clean scent of his cologne, the controlled rhythm of his steps. A photographer raised a camera. Matteo's eyes shifted. The camera lowered. Elise leaned close without meaning to. "Do you threaten everyone with eye contact? Only amateurs need words." Comforting. His mouth almost curved. Then Rafael Serrano appeared. He was handsome in the way old money teaches men to be handsome, silver at the temples. Warm smile, white dinner jacket, eyes like a locked drawer. He kissed the air near Elise's hand without touching her. "Miss Warren," he said, "New Orleans has been enchanted by you overnight." Elise felt Matteo go still beside her. "I doubt that," she said. Serrano smiled wider. A modest woman, rare in Matteo's circle. Matteo's voice was flat. "Speak carefully. Always." Serrano turned to him. "I was sorry your meeting ended poorly." "You should be." A delicate pause. Elise felt the violence beneath it like heat beneath pavement. Serrano looked back at her. "Tell me, Miss Warren, how does a hotel seamstress become the most protected woman in Louisiana by breakfast?" Elise's fingers tightened around her clutch. Matteo shifted, but she answered first. "She does her job better than powerful men expect." Something flickered in Serrano's eyes. Matteo looked at her, and for one breath, the ballroom disappeared. His expression did not soften exactly. It focused, as if she had done something dangerous and beautiful, and he had no idea whether to stop her or watch her burn the room down. Serrano chuckled. "I see the appeal." Matteo stepped half an inch forward. That was all. Serrano's smile faded. "Careful," Matteo said. Elise had heard dangerous men threaten each other in movies. Loud voices, guns, rage. This was worse. Matteo sounded almost bored. Serrano recovered smoothly. "Enjoy the evening." He vanished into the crowd. Elise exhaled. Matteo leaned closer. "You shouldn't provoke him. You brought me here to be seen. I didn't bring you here to become interesting to him. I was already interesting. I found your microphone." His gaze dropped again, briefly, to her mouth. Elise. There it was again. Her name, as warning. Her name, as restraint. Her name, as something he did not want to want. Before she could answer, the string quartet stopped. A large screen descended at the far end of the room. Serrano stepped onto a small stage, smiling for cameras. Tonight, he announced, we celebrate restoration, art, legacy, the preservation of history. Images of the Devereux Hotel appeared behind him. Old photographs, renovation plans, donor names. Then another image flashed. Elise in the service corridor. The room murmured. Her body went cold. The photo changed. Elise entering Matteo's penthouse. Another murmur. Serrano's smile remained elegant, and sometimes history reminds us that those who move unseen beneath luxury often have the greatest access to power. Matteo's hand finally touched Elise's back, lightly. Once. Then he moved in front of her. The entire room felt it. Serrano continued, a question has spread through our city. Was last night's failed peace summit ruined by betrayal among powerful families? Or by someone much smaller, much closer, and perhaps much easier to purchase? Elise's ears rang. He was framing her. In public. Matteo stepped forward. Elise grabbed his sleeve. He stopped instantly. Not because she was strong enough to stop him, because she had touched him. Their eyes met. She shook her head once. If Matteo attacked Serrano here, the story would become true enough for people to believe. A seam always remembers pressure. Elise looked at the screen. The angle of the photo was wrong. She frowned. Not from the hallway security camera. Lower, near the laundry carts. Service level B. The dead zone. Not dead after all. She leaned toward Matteo. The footage didn't come from hotel cameras. His eyes sharpened. There's a hidden camera in the basement corridor. Behind the linen shelves, maybe. Serrano didn't just plant the microphone. He's been watching the staff route. Matteo turned slightly to Dante, who stood 5 feet away pretending to admire a statue. Dante moved. Serrano was still speaking when the museum-esque lights flickered. The screen went black. A ripple of confusion passed through the room. Matteo took Elise's hand. Not her wrist, not her arm. Her hand. Walk, he said. They crossed the ballroom together as whispers rose around them. Elise expected him to release her once they reached the hall. He didn't. In the marble corridor outside, she tried to pull away. His fingers tightened just enough to stop her, not enough to hurt. Matteo. He froze at the sound of his name from her mouth, then released her. I'm sorry, he said. The apology sounded unfamiliar to him. That made it land harder. Elise rubbed her palm, though he had not hurt her. You were about to kill him. Yes. The honesty stunned her. In front of 200 people. Yes, because he embarrassed you. Matteo stepped closer, anger suddenly alive beneath his control. Because he put your face on a screen and invited every enemy I have to decide whether you bleed easily. Elise's throat tightened. For one aching second, she saw it. Not the Mafia Boss. The man who had lost someone and never forgiven the world for continuing afterward. Who did you lose? She whispered. His face closed. No. The word was quiet. Final. But Elise had never been good at obeying closed seams. Your sister? She asked. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. Not at her. At the memory. Matteo turned away. The corridor beyond them stretched dark and empty, lined with paintings of old saints and older sinners. My sister had a daughter, he said at last. Sophia. 5 years old. She lives under another name now, 3 states away. She thinks I'm a family friend who sends books on her birthday. Elise's anger faded into something softer and more painful. The peace meeting was for her. It was for business, he said. Matteo. His eyes cut back to hers. She did not know where she found the courage to hold them. He looked away again. My sister died because men around me confused pride with loyalty, he said. I have spent 4 years making them afraid enough not to repeat that mistake. It hasn't worked." The admission hung between them. Then his phone rang. He answered. Elise watched his expression become empty. That emptiness scared her more than rage. He ended the call. "What?" she asked. "Serrano's men found your nephew's school." The world disappeared beneath Elise's feet. Noah was taken from after-school care at 5:16 p.m. by a woman with forged paperwork and a smile good enough to fool a tired receptionist. By the time Matteo's men arrived, he was gone. Elise did not remember leaving the museum. She remembered Matteo's coat around her shoulders, though she had not asked for it. She remembered rain. She remembered a black SUV moving too fast through streets smeared with neon. She remembered trying to call Noah's father and getting voicemail 3 times. She remembered Matteo speaking into a phone in a language she did not understand, his voice so calm that it seemed to make the driver's hands shake. Then she remembered hitting him. Not hard, not with aim. Just a desperate fist against his chest when they reached the safe house, and Dante said they were still tracing the vehicle. "This is because of you," she said, breaking on every word. "Because of your suit, your meeting, your enemies." "I know." His answer broke her more than denial would have. "I told you he had nothing to do with this." "I know. He's 7. Matteo said nothing. Elise hit him again, weaker this time. He let her. No defense, no anger, no hands on her. Just stood there while she fell apart against the armor of his body. When her strength failed, she stepped back, horrified by herself. "I'm sorry. Don't be. You should be angry." "I am." His voice was almost gentle. Elise looked up. Matteo's eyes were not on her. They were on the door, and whatever lived in them then was not human enough to name. 3 hours later, the call came. A burner phone placed on the dining table rang once. Dante answered on speaker. Raphael Serrano's voice filled the room, warm as honey over broken glass. "Matteo, you've made such a mess of my gala." Matteo stood at the head of the table, one hand resting flat on the wood. Elise sat nearby, wrapped in his coat, every nerve in her body screaming. "Where is the boy?" Matteo asked, so direct. "This is why peace always fails with you. Where is he?" A pause. Then Noah's voice, small and terrified. "Auntie?" Elise lunged for the phone. Matteo caught her hand before she touched it. Not hard, but firmly. She looked at him with pure hatred. He held her gaze and shook his head once. Serrano chuckled. "Touching." "I confess, Miss Warren surprised me. I thought she was a loose thread. Turns out she's attached to something." Matteo's fingers tightened on the table. "What do you want?" he asked. "The original device, the jacket, and the woman." "No." Elise looked up sharply. Serrano sighed. "Then, I suppose the child becomes history." The room went still. Matteo's voice lowered into something lethal. "If you hurt him, I will remove your name from every building, account, and mouth that has ever benefited from speaking it." Poetic, but wasteful. Serrano's tone hardened. "Bring Elise to street. Bartholomew S. midnight. No convoy. No police. No cleverness." The call ended. Elise stood. "I'm going." "No, you don't get to know me." Matteo turned on her. "He will kill you. He has Noah, and if I hand you over, he'll still kill him once he has what he wants. Then give him the jacket. The jacket proves nothing without the chain of access. Then what does he really want?" Matteo's silence answered before he did. Elise went cold. "Me." Dante spoke carefully. "You can identify the device, the altered seam, the timing, the corridor. You're the witness connecting Serrano to the planted surveillance." Matteo looked at Elise. "And because I put you in front of cameras tonight, he thinks taking you from me proves I'm weak. You did use me as bait." The words slipped out before she could soften them. Matteo flinched. Barely. But she saw it. "You knew Serrano would react if I appeared with you," she said. "You knew he might expose himself. I knew he would move. You didn't know he damned take Noah. No, but you gambled." The silence hurt. Elise stepped back, tears burning. "I trusted you." Matteo's eyes darkened with something like pain. "You shouldn't have." There it was, the wall. The monster warning the woman not to touch the bars of his cage. Elise nodded slowly. "Then don't stop me." She walked toward the door. 2 guards blocked her. Matteo didn't speak. The guards didn't move. Elise turned back. "If you keep me here while he has Noah, you're not protecting me. You're owning me." Matteo stared at her. The room held its breath. Then he said, "Move." The guards stepped aside. Dante looked at him like he had lost his mind. Maybe he had. Matteo approached Elise slowly. "You go nowhere alone. You said no convoy. No visible convoy. That sounds like cleverness. Serrano should have specified he wanted me stupid." Despite everything, a broken laugh escaped her. It vanished quickly. Matteo stopped close enough that she had to tilt her head back. "I used you tonight," he said. The admission was rough, forced from him. "I told myself it was strategy, that keeping you near me protected you and drew him out at the same time. I told myself I could control both. And now?" His eyes moved over her face with such restrained intensity that her breath caught. "Now a child is missing," he said, "and I am discovering there are things I cannot control." Elise's anger did not disappear, but something in her chest shifted. Not forgiveness. Not yet. "Why does that scare you more than guns?" she whispered. Matteo's hand lifted. For a moment, she thought he might touch her cheek. He stopped before contact. His fingers curled into a fist and dropped. "Because guns obey pressure," he said. "You don't." Street Bartholomew had been abandoned after Hurricane Katrina and never properly restored. It stood at the edge of the city like a memory people were too guilty to tear down. Half the stained glass windows were boarded. Vines climbed the walls. Rain dripped through holes in the roof and pooled between cracked pews. At midnight, Elise walked through the front doors wearing Matteo's coat over her emerald dress. No visible convoy. No police. No cleverness. Only Matteo walking beside her, unarmed to the eye, rage hidden so deeply he looked almost peaceful. Inside the church, candles burned along the altar. Raphael Serrano stood beneath a broken statue of Saint Michael, his white dinner jacket spotless. Noah sat on the front pew, hands bound loosely, face wet with tears but alive. Elise made a sound she did not recognize. "Auntie." She started forward. A gun appeared in Serrano's hand. Matteo's arm came across her body, stopping her. "Let him go," Matteo said. Serrano smiled. The jacket first. Dante entered behind them, carrying the garment bag. Serrano's men emerged from the shadows along the aisles. Too many. Guns ready, faces blank. Dante laid the garment bag on a pew and stepped back. Serrano nodded to one of his men. The man opened it, checked the jacket, and removed the sealed evidence pouch containing the microphone. Serrano looked pleased. Elise's mind moved strangely then. Slowly, clearly. Maybe terror had burned away everything unnecessary. She saw the jacket, the collar, the stitch, the way Serrano's man handled it without surprise, like he had seen it before. "You planted it yourself," she said. Serrano looked at her. Elise stepped slightly forward. Matteo's arm tightened, but she did not stop. "You didn't have someone plant it. You did it. Or you watched someone do it close enough to know exactly where it was sewn." Serrano's smile thinned. "Careful, Miss Warren. You wanted the peace meeting recorded, but not just to leak it. You wanted Matteo to accuse one of the other families. Start the war again. Wars are profitable. And peace is bad for men who sell safe places. Something flickered in his expression. Matteo glanced at her. Elise kept going, because if she stopped, she would hear Noah crying and lose her nerve. You own hotels, security contracts, private transport, emergency medical wings. You don't need to control the families if they keep paying you to survive each other. Serrano tilted his head. You really are wasted in a basement. And you were stupid to use a hand stitch on Italian silk. Your people used machine work on the shoulder repair, but the collar was opened by someone who knows couture. Serrano's eyes hardened. There, the seam opened. Matteo saw it too. Enough, Serrano said. He aimed the gun at Noah. The church exploded. Not in fire, in movement. The stained glass window behind Serrano shattered inward as Matteo's men entered through the side chapel. Dante moved first, fast and brutal, knocking one gunman into a pew. Matteo pushed Elise behind a stone column and went for Noah. Serrano fired. Elise screamed. Matteo stumbled, but did not fall. Blood spread across his side, dark against his black shirt. He kept moving. Noah cried out as Matteo cut his bindings with a blade Elise never saw him draw. A man grabbed Elise from behind. She drove her heel down hard, twisted, and remembered the only weapon she had, her sewing scissors. Dante had returned them before they left the safe house. For luck, he had said. She pulled them from Matteo's coat pocket and slashed the attacker's sleeve, not deep, but enough to make him release her. She ran toward Noah. Serrano caught her by the arm near the altar. His charm was gone now. His face looked older without it. You should have stayed invisible, he hissed. Elise looked past him. Matteo stood 10 feet away, one hand pressed to his bleeding side, the other holding a gun trained on Serrano's head. Noah was behind him, shielded by Dante. Matteo's face was terrifying. Not because he looked angry, because he looked empty of every mercy except the one standing in Serrano's grip. Let her go, Matteo said. Serrano pulled Elise closer. Shoot me, and she falls with me. Matteo's hand did not shake, but his eyes did. Just once. Elise saw it. Fear. Not of death, of losing her. Serrano saw it too. He smiled. And that was his mistake, because he looked at Matteo when he should have watched Elise. Elise raised the scissors and drove them into the hanging microphone wire clipped beneath Serrano's lapel. A tiny transmitter sparked against his white jacket. Serrano froze. Matteo's eyes sharpened. Dante laughed once from behind him. We're alive. Serrano's face drained. Elise had noticed the wire when he grabbed her. A microphone hidden in his own lapel. Of course, a man like Serrano recorded everyone. Insurance, leverage, power. But Dante had been scanning frequencies since they entered. Serrano had just confessed to profiting from war while transmitting to every family channel Matteo's men had hijacked. The church doors opened. Men entered from the rain. Not Matteo's men, not Serrano's. The other families. The peace table. They had heard everything. Serrano released Elise. Matteo caught her before she hit the floor. This time, he touched her without asking. One arm around her waist, one hand at the back of her head, his body between hers and every weapon in the church. For 1 second, she let herself collapse against him. You, re-bleeding, she whispered. His mouth was near her hair. You, re-shaking. Noah, safe. She pulled back enough to see his face. Rain dripped through the broken roof. Candlelight moved over his scar. Blood darkened his shirt. His eyes held hers with something raw and unguarded. Elise, he said. The church went silent around them, men with guns, rival bosses. Broken glass. A child, crying softly into Dante's coat. None of it seemed to reach Matteo. Only her. I cannot lose you, he said. It was not a confession of love. It was something more dangerous, a surrender. 3 weeks later, Elise returned to the Devereux Hotel through the front entrance. Not as an employee. The lobby fell silent anyway. The hotel had changed hands quietly after Serrano's arrest made national headlines. Not officially, of course. Officially, an investment group purchased controlling interest after a financial scandal. Unofficially, every portrait of Serrano vanished from the walls by sunrise. Pierce was promoted. The basement cameras were replaced. The staff received raises large enough to make the housekeeping supervisor cry in the linen room. Elise noticed all of it because she noticed repairs. She wore a navy dress and low heels. Noah held her hand, proudly wearing a little suit that Matteo's tailor had made, and Elise had secretly adjusted because the sleeves were too stiff. Noah liked Matteo. That terrified Elise more than the guns had. Children saw through expensive masks. Noah did not understand empire or blood debts, or the way grown men stepped aside when Matteo entered a room. He only knew Matteo listened when he talked about dinosaurs and never lied when asked a question. "Is he your boyfriend?" Noah had asked once. Elise had choked on her tea. Matteo had looked directly at Noah and said, "I'm trying to become worthy of that question." Elise had not known what to do with that. She still didn't. Tonight, the 42nd floor ballroom had been restored for a private dinner. Not a peace meeting, a celebration. The families had signed terms after Serrano's confession. Not because they had become good men overnight, but because war had been exposed as someone else's business model, and pride hated being manipulated more than it loved revenge. Matteo stood near the windows when Elise entered. No suit jacket, just a black dress shirt, black trousers, and a dark vest. No armor, no perfect tailoring hiding every scar. His side was healing, though he moved carefully when tired. His eyes found Elise immediately. They always did now. That should have frightened her. Sometimes it did. But fear had changed shape. It was no longer the fear of being trapped. It was the fear of being seen completely, and choosing not to run. Matteo crossed the room. No one interrupted him. Noah ran ahead. "Mr. Varelli." Matteo crouched, ignoring the way several crime bosses watched in astonishment as the most feared man in the city accepted a crayon drawing of a stegosaurus wearing sunglasses. "This is excellent," Matteo said solemnly. Noah beamed. "Auntie helped with the tale." Matteo looked up at Elise. "Of course she did," he said. "She fixes what matters." Her heart did something foolish. Celia took Noah to see the dessert table. Elise and Matteo stood alone beside the window, though dozens of people surrounded them. "Nice party," Elise said. "I dislike parties. You own a hotel now. I own several things I dislike." She looked at him. "That sounds lonely." His gaze held hers. It was. Was. The word touched her gently. Matteo reached into the inside pocket of his vest and removed the black suit jacket. The original one. Repaired. Elise stared at it. "You kept it. You saved my life with it. Your empire." His mouth curved faintly. At first, he handed it to her. The collar had been restored beautifully, but not invisibly. A thin line of silver thread now marked the place she had cut open. Deliberate. Honest. A scar in the fabric. Elise ran her fingers over the stitch. "You asked them to leave it visible." "I asked no one." His voice lowered. "I was waiting for you." Her breath caught. Around them, the ballroom glowed with candlelight and rain-washed city lights. The same room where guns had once pointed at her now watched Matteo Varelli stand before a seamstress as though awaiting judgment. Elise looked down at the jacket, then at him. "You're still dangerous," she said. "Yes, you still scare me sometimes. I know. You don't get to decide my life because you're afraid of losing me." His face tightened, but he nodded. "I know that too, and if you ever use me as bait again, I won't." "Matteo." He stepped closer, stopping just outside touch. "I want," he repeated. "Not because I have become good. Don't mistake me, Elise. I am not gentle with the world. I don't know how to be, but I know the difference now, between protecting someone and controlling her." Her throat tightened. "And what am I?" she whispered. His eyes moved over her face, stripped of performance, power, and distance. "The first person who ever cut through my armor," he said, and stayed after seeing what was underneath. Elise closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, his hand was lifted between them, palm up, an invitation, not a command. She took it. His fingers closed around hers slowly, like a vow learning how to be gentle. The room noticed. Of course it did. Whispers moved through the guests. Men who feared Matteo watched him hold Elise's hand as if it were more dangerous than any weapon he had ever carried. Maybe it was. Elise stepped closer and adjusted the collar of his vest, smoothing a seam that did not need smoothing. Matteo looked down at her hand on his chest. "You redoing that on purpose," he said. "Yes." "Why?" She smiled faintly. "Because you need to learn patience." His eyes darkened. Elise. Her name again. Warning. Restraint. Want. This time, she did not step back. Rain slid down the windows behind them. New Orleans shimmered below, sinful and beautiful, stitched together by music, secrets, and storms. Matteo bent his head, slow enough for her to refuse. She did not. The kiss was not soft at first. It was controlled, restrained. A dangerous man trying to hold back every ruined part of himself so he would not frighten the woman who had already seen him at his worst. Then Elise touched his face, and Matteo Verelli, feared by every man in the room, trembled, only once. Only enough for her to feel. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. "I don't know how to love without becoming dangerous," he whispered. Elise looked into his eyes. "Then learn." His hand tightened around hers. "I will." Across the room, Noah laughed at something Celia said. The chandelier glowed above them. The repaired jacket lay over Elise's arm, its silver scar catching the light. A seam always remembers pressure, but sometimes if the hand is patient enough, if the thread is strong enough, if the torn places are not hidden but honored, what was broken can become stronger than what was untouched. Matteo turned toward the room, Elise beside him, their hands still linked. The men who had once aimed guns at her lowered their heads. Not to Matteo, to her. Elise Warren, the forgotten seamstress from the basement, stood in the center of New Orleans luxury with the city's most dangerous man at her side, and realized she was no longer invisible. And Matteo Verelli looked at her as if every empire he had built had only been waiting for the woman brave enough to cut it open and find his heart wired beneath the seams. The storm outside softened into rain. Inside, beneath the black crystal chandelier, he lifted her hand to his mouth and kissed her knuckles with the reverence of a man making a promise he intended to keep. Not peace, not safety. Something rarer in their world. Devotion.